welcome to today's 18 Group webinar on market data in the cloud, fueling the next stage generation of data delivery systems. My name is Sarah Underwood. I'm an editor here at 18 Group, and I will be moderating today's webinar. Our expert speakers today are Anna Branch, Head of Strategic Partnership at Quilter, Jason West, Head of Real-Time Refinitiv Managed Services at Refinitiv and the LSEG Company, Bill Beards, President at BCC Group, and Tim Edwards, Sales Engineer, Google Cloud Platform at Google. I'll ask the speakers to introduce themselves in just a moment, but first some information for you to make the most of the webinar. To the right of your screen, you'll see a Slido panel. There are audience polls there and also a panel for your questions. So we'll be running 3 polls today. Do please vote so we can gauge our industries, how they're getting on with market data in the cloud and next-gen delivery systems. In terms of questions, please put your questions in the question panel, and we'll gather these up and ask them to our speakers as we go along, perhaps towards 2/3 of the way through. We'll take a break for those, so place those in that channel. Okay, enough of me, and let me ask our speakers to introduce themselves. Anna, please introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your interest here.
Good afternoon, my name is Anna Branch. I work at Quilter. I look after at Quilter all front office strategic partnerships, including market data. My interest here is obviously in the front office, and within Quilter we use a lot of market data. Cloud is something that we are seeing being introduced not only across our suppliers, but also something that we're looking at internally and dealing with. And I think, you know, having been in the market data industry for many years, this is quite a pivotal moment, I think, in the technology side of market data, as things are moved away from physical delivery to being delivered via the cloud.
Excellent, thank you, Jason.
Hi there, my name is Jason West. I run the real-time managed distribution service at Refinitiv LSEG. My interest today is I run a private cloud. I'm building a public cloud for our client base. I'm interested to see what the thoughts are via Slido, and obviously my peers and people on here as well, what their thoughts are around market data in public and private cloud and the momentum that's building today.
Thank you very much. And over to you, Bill.
Hi, my name is Bill Beards. I'm president of BCC Group based out of Frankfurt, Germany. I'm in New York. Yes, and my company, BCC Group, is focused on bringing market data to the cloud. It's our feeling that all of the types of market data should be in the cloud. We've been on this journey for a few years, and we provide a neutral market data platform.
Thank you very much indeed. And over to you, Tim.
Thanks, Sarah. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Tim Edwards. I'm a customer engineering lead in the financial services team at Google Cloud here in the UK. And I suppose my interest here is to learn a bit more about how some of our providers and partners and vendors are looking to leverage the cloud and how we can help them and customers consume it on the other side. So yeah, looking forward to today. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you all very much indeed. Looking forward to a very interesting discussion. But first, let's get started with an audience poll question. The question is, how much progress has your organization made in moving market data and infrastructure to the cloud? And while you answer that question, let me come to Jason to set the scene and talk about how the market data landscape is evolving and the trends he's seeing around adoption of cloud for market data specifically.
All right, cool. So good question. So in a previous life, I used to run market data at Citi as well as FX infrastructure. So maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I think everyone has seen this journey coming. The head of an FX desk asked me to get him some data and some historical data and get it up and running really quickly. So the 2 options were, give me £500,000 in 9 months and I'll build it, or let's go and try and partner with somebody from a cloud provider and do it that way. So luckily enough, we took option 2. We brought in a CSP, historical data from Thomson Reuters at the time, ran a POC that cost us just over $200, had it up and running in 2 weeks, and it went live straight away. So, you know, the agility was there to get the data to the desk really, really quickly. I think since then, especially in the last 18 months, we are definitely seeing the crest of the wave coming. From our tier 1 clients, our tier 2 clients, we're seeing more and more cloud requests coming through, front office, middle office, back office. It just doesn't really matter these days. Each business has its own use case, be it full tick data, historical data, conflated data. There's a use case for all of them, and we're seeing that increase significantly now. We've delivered quite a lot of solutions to our clients, and we're seeing a lot of coders that are bankers that code today. They really want to get into the market really quickly. They want to get the wallet share. They don't want to wait for infrastructure. They want scalability. They want lots of data in their hands really, really quickly. Obviously, there's the big question of CapEx versus OpEx. If you're running via a CSP, it's an OpEx to you. It's scalable. You can switch it off at weekends. And, all of the CSPs out there, you've got Microsoft Synapse, you've got Google's BigQuery, you've got AWS's Redshift and Snowflake. They're all delivering really cool core products via simplistic APIs. So, the hunger for data is there, scalability is there, and the push to get in the market quicker is there. So we're definitely seeing a huge drive towards public cloud now.
Okay. Over to you, Anna, as a practitioner. How do you see this? How's it evolving and affecting the practitioner's work?
I think from a practitioner's perspective, there's probably three main elements to all of market data, which is the data, delivery and service. And this really, I think the cloud comes around delivery and potentially service. As Jason said, there is an increasing requirement for consumption of data, more data, different levels of data, and an increasing requirement for agility and scalability. And I think coming back to the delivery side, the delivery piece has always been the piece that has delayed some of that. And I think with the cloud, that makes it quicker. It makes companies more agile and increases scalability. I think very much from a practitioner's perspective, that requires change, operational change. But I think in looking at some of that and working through some of the use cases across the business, there's definitely a requirement for it. I think one of the other pieces that's important is around cost. And I think from a practitioner's perspective on the delivery side of things, this does provide operational cost savings and time to market, as I said, agile, as Jason said. So I think there's quite a few things that are pushing towards more cloud, and I think there hasn't been a major change like this in the market data industry for quite a long time. And I think one of the other pieces that's very important here is the potential for a neutral cloud, whereby you can get any data from one particular point, which provides for greater agility. But I think cost are factors, agility, and also consumption of more and more data is a big factor here.
Okay, and any words from you, Tim, on that?
Yeah, I think both Anna and Jason, have made some really excellent points there. I think for us as a cloud platform, we see our roles as an enabler to help to bring the tools to allow people to get that data quicker. So, if you look at our data warehouse product, for example, BigQuery, one of the things I think it does really well, and we're working with LSEG and Refinitiv on this, is to be able to kind of bring your data once into the platform and then share it out with many people in a very quick kind of manner. You can just use kind of views on top that are authorized, so you can only give specific people access to the data that you're happy for them to have access to it. And what this allows people to do is get really quick access to that data and very in a kind of a low cost manner, very easy to iterate on, and it gives people the opportunity to learn how to use these tools in a very kind of cost effective manner, in a very quick manner, and it allows them to fail faster. Something that we kind of quite famous for at Google is that concept of failing fast. So you don't always want to have to go and put £500,000 worth of infrastructure in place to then realize that doesn't quite what you want to do. You can go in, you can test something. If it works, you can iterate it and build it out and then start to see it grow and develop over time. And I think cloud is a great enabler to do that. And that's somewhere where we think we play very strongly.
Okay, thank you all. And maybe see those first poll results, please. Thank you. Jason, what do you think to that? That looks fairly positive.
It does. If you'd looked at this a year ago or maybe 2 years ago, there would be some progress would be more highlighted, but people are now becoming more and more comfortable with the journey. I think a lot of the struggles people have had with their security teams, their compliance teams, the regulators, the CSPs are doing a very good job of going into bat for us, for our clients, to ensure that the regulators understand what we're doing with cloud and how cloud operates. And the more that's done, the more comfortable our clients will become. So this is where I expect it to be.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. And thank you, Jason, then. And bringing Bill in, what are firms trying to achieve when they move to the cloud? What benefits are they accruing and what challenges remain?
Yeah, I think that the journey to the cloud for financial services didn't really start. I think Jason said this already till 3 or 4 years ago, actually. I think most of the other industries have proven it out for them. And then we've learned a lot from retail and manufacturing and so forth and others, that how valuable the cloud can be. The financial services firms have started with historical data. It's the easiest one, I think, to do. It's the least time sensitive, and they're non-mission critical per se, right? But I think real time, intraday data is coming, and I think that stat at 43% is a pretty good indication of people are dabbling in this a lot now, and they weren't 2 years ago. I can tell you that for a fact, because we've been on this journey for a few years. I think what's holding them back is the challenges that we mentioned earlier. Things like there's a perceived reliability, perceived resilience, perceived security, perceived latency issues with the cloud. However, we've seen all those things be addressed by Google and Amazon and IBM and Azure and so forth. So we're very confident about those things. But yeah, I think the cloud offers massive organizational savings, massive cost savings, massive administrative savings, management benefits, and so forth, and obviously all around scalability and so forth is all part of that story. And we have yet to discover all the things that the cloud is going to bring and the benefits it's going to bring across all the product sets within market data. That's my view.
Okay, Jason, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, so Bill's nailed most of the points there. It's simplicity, it's cost reduction, it's scalability, it's ease of access. For a lot of our clients, it's OPEX over CAPEX. The days of having 2 data centers and one just running just in case it's required, you waste millions and millions of dollars. You probably never use the backup DC. For me, it's querying the data at source, not bringing the data into your organization, as we alluded to earlier, as Tim said. So, that's a really good benefit. I think some of the challenges that remain are those of understanding regulators, compliance teams, risk teams, network security. Security is obviously a big thing, but we see more and more clients working through that. For me, I would say FinOps is absolutely crucial when you're deploying a product. Make sure you check your TCO. What's your burn rate today? What's it going to be tomorrow? It's a different way of working. It's a different way of engineering. But the cost saves are there and the scalability is there. So that's all I'd add.
Okay, let's move on to delivery solutions, and let's run an audience poll. The question this time: what types of data delivery solutions does your organization use for market data distribution from the cloud? So you have a number of options there, and please feel free to take as many as are appropriate to your organization. And while you do that, let me come back to Tim to talk about the types of existing and next generation data delivery models that are helpful in making best use of market data in the cloud, and why financial institutions should be investing in them pretty much now.
Yeah, again, I think that's a good question. I think there's kind of 2 ways to look at it. I think obviously you've got the native capabilities that all of the cloud platforms are able to provide. So for example, whether it be like a data warehouse or kind of that publisher to subscriber kind of messaging type approach, which again, most of the clouds now have. We do have our own service in both of them, but it's also being able to provide an underlying platform for people to run their own solutions and their own applications on top. So allow people like, for example, we work with Bloomberg, so they run BPipe on GCP. So that's another way for, market data kind of consumers to get their information and to get the data that they need from the vendors that they know and they work with today, because we can provide a platform that is scalable and it's resilient and it can meet the needs of both the persons providing the data and the people looking to consume it. So, I think that the cloud gives you that wealth of options. It's not kind of, it can be to some degree what you need it to be. And I think it's a great place to allow people to run, in particular, scale out solutions. So, you know, if you have kind of very kind of peaky type workloads or very peaky type demand, you're not paying for all that hardware to be sitting there in a data center doing nothing for 99% of the time for that, you know, that swan event that's going to happen, and you're going to need to consume all of it. The platform will scale to meet that need, but you can keep a far kind of lower operating cost on a day-to-day basis. And I think cloud is a great place to run applications like that for that reason. And again, I think it's just that if you want to go completely all in on one cloud, we have great cloud native solutions on our platform that can, you know, meet the needs of what you're looking to do. But we're also open and very much believe in an open source approach to allow people to run containerized workloads and other workloads to complement that as well.
Okay. Anna, once again, as a practitioner, perhaps, what types of existing and next generation data delivery models do you think are helpful here? And is there a great investment in actually implementing them?
Yeah, I mean, leading on from what Tim said, I mean, I agree with all the points that Tim made actually as to the different models that there are. I mean, around the data types, you know, as Jason said, it's kind of started off with people looking at history. I think things like reference data, pricing data is increasing, but it all comes down to the different use cases of each different organization. And as many of us have alluded today, the compliance and the risk issues around that, you need to look at the data sets you're using in the cloud and whether that covers, you know, for the risk and compliance requirements within each organization. But there are definitely, certainly, you know, a variety of data sets that can very easily be accessed in the cloud. And I think Tim's summary of the different types of offers from a technical perspective in the cloud, either, you know, be it per third party or collective or a neutral type of cloud that allows the ability to move from one provider to another. I think all of those are really powerful offerings. But I think a lot of it from a practitioner perspective is down to the individual data sets that are required by an organization and which ones suit that organization with this form of delivery. You know, for wealth management, things like reference data, history, that type of thing, pricing data, some pricing data is very easily to be delivered.
Okay.
Sarah, can I just comment on that as well?
Yes, of course, right, Bill.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think that you know, I think one of the tier one banks said to me a few years ago, you know, what makes us think that we're better at managing our data center than Google or Amazon? You know what I mean? Because I think that financial institutions should be focused on delivering their products and the things that they're experts at, right? And the cloud, let the cloud worry about the things that are infrastructure related and this kind of thing. And I also use the quote quite often. If Google has an outage, it's a significant business hit for them. You know what I mean? A reputational hit for them. So they're in the business of making sure that the data is secure, reliable, resilient. You know, and also we don't talk about failover very much and high availability very much. I mean, it's very hard to make sure that your high availability is running all the time when you're running between two different data centers, right? And having the ability to do high availability and disaster recovery across regions or zones within Frankfurt to Belgium or New York to Oregon. I mean, it changes everything when it comes to managing the infrastructure of the cloud and the market data business. Okay.
Well, let's see what our audience is thinking in terms of delivering mechanisms. And Tim, perhaps you'd like to comment on these results. 100% want real-time feeds, another 40%, 44% are using, bear in mind they can tick as many boxes as they like, so this won't add up. 44 using managed services, open source APIs, that's low as far as I can see. What do you think, Tim?
Yeah, I think it's great to see real-time feeds up there, to be honest, because historically, I think Jason alluded to it a couple of years ago, nobody would have even gone anywhere near a cloud provider for a real-time feed. It would have been, historic data at best. So, I think that's a really encouraging shift that we're seeing, organizations feel comfortable to go towards more of a real-time. We're still nowhere near the kind of ultra-low latency, kind of real niche, kind of top % of transactions that you would need. And historically have been hosted very close to a venue. But I mean, for most other things, cloud's a really great place to run it, and I think people are starting to realise that, and I think it's kind of evident in that poll result. So yeah, I think that's super encouraging.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much indeed, Tim. And coming back to you, Jason, if I may, to talk more specifically about which of those options, the delivery options, is best suited to different types of trading organization. It may be that data feeds are all that's needed out there, but tell us a little bit more about the different kinds of delivery solution.
So, if you break down a tier one bank, real time, full tick, some people are taking it today, some aren't. Some are wary of it, especially the algo traders, anyone that's co-located with an exchange or a venue. I can't see them going into a full cloud presence anytime soon, which is probably 5-10% of a market's business. The rest of them, one of the big things I've noted is people building data lakes. People used to build data lakes on premise. They turned into data swamps. They couldn't do them. They couldn't fix them. But, with Google coming along, AWS, Snowflake, and Microsoft coming along, people are building these data lakes and they're delivering the data direct to these data lakes, which then allows an entire company to query that data. So they'll send the query to the data, not bring the data in. And I think for anyone that's worked in investment banking, you bring data into a building, it'll get cut and shut 40, 50 times by different businesses and stored, and the costs just go up. You don't know where it is, you don't know how to use it, it never gets flushed. So for me, I think historical data combined by, conflated full tick or full tick if you want to run it within a CSP, it just works perfectly. And, it allows your risk teams, your compliance teams, post-trade teams, execution teams, data scientists, everyone to access the same type of data, 9 times out of 10 using a single API. So, it just works really, really well.
Okay, thank you. And Tim, what would you add there when you're out there in the market? What are people wanting? What are they asking for?
Yeah, I think Jason made, really great points there. I think some of the other, additional use cases we kind of see, and maybe people kind of, when they think about the data, they don't always think about, how you can complement it in additional things, but things like, what if scenarios and research, and the cloud's a great place to run that. So, being able to scale out from, 1 to thousands of nodes in an extremely small space of time allows people to run huge amounts of computation, in a very kind of cost-controlled manner, and in a far more performant way as well. So, the addition of things like GPUs and TPUs, things that again are very difficult to source in the real world, and cloud providers have these available in regions all around the world, and it's another really great use case in how we can complement and then use the data that's now being pumped into the cloud by all the venues and the markets and the providers, and make real use out of it, and how businesses can start to make far more informed decisions in a far shorter space of time than they've previously been able to.
Okay, thank you. Coming on to the challenges and opportunities of these next generation cloud distribution platforms, we seem to talk quite a lot about the benefits. Anna, do you see any particular challenges here, and what are your specific benefits that you experience and the opportunities that these give you?
I think some of the challenges around concentration risk, from a contractual perspective, concentration risk of your cloud providers. But having said that, there is failover from failover to failover to failover, from country to other cloud provider. But I think concentration risk is one of the key things. I think the other challenges, as we've all alluded to, is around the compliance and risk of using cloud, and it all comes down to those user cases within the businesses. Very interested to see that the poll posed that there was 42%, I think it was 42 or 44%, that said that they would move price into the cloud, which wasn't the case 4 or 5 years ago. But I think the compliance and the risk piece is quite key to work through on those particular user cases. As I said, concentration risk. I think some of the opportunities are around failover and disaster recovery. The cost of that there have been, and use of the cloud makes that far cheaper and far more cost effective. But I think some of the other opportunities are around consistency of data, consistency of symbology, consistency of delivery, I think one of the other challenges around it, and could also be an opportunity, is, as we've alluded to, is usage of data within an organisation and management of usage of that data. And we all know when, data at the moment is probably delivered many times and used once. What we want is for it to be delivered once and used many times and managed for that usage. And I bang on about this quite a lot, actually. I want one to, nirvana is one delivery, usage many times, and for it to be managed. And I don't think any organisation is at that state at the moment, but the cloud is moving more towards that, and I think will help that. But the management of it, the permissioning of it, those are challenges, but there are also opportunities too. I think there are some challenges here, but they do lead into opportunities, I think, for organisations.
Okay, thank you, Bill. What would you add here?
Yeah, I'm gonna. The challenges of it, as we've all discussed enough here, we know what they are, and I think they're being addressed. I think I'd rather focus more on the opportunities here. And something you said earlier, Anna, was interesting, was that this is an industry that hasn't changed much in 20 years, right? It's been on-prem and the way it's been, right? And I think the cloud is presenting a real opportunity to ingest some competition into the market between cloud providers, between data providers, and so forth. And I think that the buy side and the sell side firms are going to be demanding the best service, the best price, the best contractual terms, the best of everything, because they're going to be in a world where they now have the opportunity to be neutral, and to make choices based on service and price, as opposed to the fact that they've got technology that they have and they're sitting in their data center. So I think it's a real opportunity for them. The cloud offers all kinds of flexibility. And I think there's we're going to see a great shift over the next 2 or 3 years in the way that clients are getting their data. And so I think there's some opportunities here we should be talking about as we go through here.
Yeah, and Bill, I would agree with you on the competition side of things, and that there hasn't been a change here in the last 20 years. I think this potentially will bring about quite a few changes. But I agree with you.
I talk about the pendulum swinging, right? The pendulum swinging back to the data consumer. That's how I see it. That's how I see it going. Yeah.
Okay, and maybe hurrah! I don't know. We'll see. So let me bring back Tim back in to tell us about the types of technologies, techniques, solutions, and services that are helpful here to realise the opportunities of next-gen cloud distribution platforms. Because obviously there are two ends to this. What sort of technologies are useful here?
Yeah, so thanks, Sarah, again. I think there's multiple ways to look at this. I think I mentioned previously that, we've got, as a cloud platform provider, Google, we have a number of native services available on our platform that can help with that full end-to-end kind of data distribution or data consumption model. We also have open source equivalents of those services in many cases that, allow you to decide if you want to go for more of a hybrid or a multi-cloud approach. That's, an option for you as well. And we also, as I mentioned, work very closely with many of the vendors out there on the market as well today. So we can take that complete end-to-end pipeline, if you like. So take a ingestion from whether it be a flat file or a stream via API, and then we can take that data, we can run it through an ETL pipeline, we can then provide that into a data warehouse, and then you can then start to do the data processing need on top. So whether that's through something like a Spark or a Hadoop, or kind of, then one thing we've not really talked about is the consumer at the end. So then how do you present that to the user? What are they going to use it for? So are they going to use it for analytical purposes? So are you going to give them, a nice BI tool that they're going to be able to go in and interact with it and, create some nice charts and, graphs? Or are you going to provide this to kind of data scientists? How do they then start to really delve into that data and start to get true value out of it? So, we're moving into the next iteration of data, which is, AI. AI is everywhere at the moment, and we're talking a lot about data, and you can't not talk about data and talk about AI at the same time. And AI in this industry is maybe got a little way to go yet. I think that it will get there, and it is everywhere. And, having large corpuses of data to be able to kind of understand, and again, cloud platforms are fantastic for this, because it gives you that scaled out, that computation that you need to really kind of create really big models, really understand that data, and then start to kind of leverage that data to then help you get value from that data, not just use it as another asset. I mean, it's going to be really interesting, but from us as a provider, we can provide services that kind of meet you at every step of that pipeline and provide the tools to do that. But we also partner with the right people as well if you have a specific or a niche use case that we need to work with as well. So.
Okay, and Jason, what would you say in terms of the technologies? Obviously, cloud providers can provide lots of technologies. Perhaps the consumers may not be able to match that immediately. How does that work, and how do you see AI coming into the field, if that is something that you've thought about?
So I think we alluded to it earlier. People used to have data centers spinning with millions of pounds worth of servers in them doing nothing, just waiting. I think a failover strategy on the cloud, we've done a few, we have a few, is really, really quick. You don't have to run, your contingency site at 100%. You just fire it up when you need it. So that could be instantly, 10 minutes, 4 hours, whatever you need it for. I think one thing we need to cover is we have clients all over the world, and the cloud is still CPU, memory, disks. We still have glass fiber. We still have copper wires and all that stuff. You've got to get the data to the cloud, to the client. So the way that interacts these days, and using things like Managed Extranet for Cloud, where you can deliver data to any cloud provider down to VPC level, is also accelerating those type of those opportunities as well. So there's still a way to go, but I think having the CSPs, I spend a lot of time with our clients, and depending on what CSP they're using, they're in the room with us, going on that journey, understanding what the business use case is, what the technological strategy is, and then helping those clients drive there is really, really good. It works well. And I think what Tim alluded to, there's more and more to come from the cloud. Data scientists today are smashing through petabytes of data, doing analysis, doing back testing. That wasn't a thing 3 or 4 years ago, but it is now. So I think we're at the beginning of a journey, but the beginning is going to start accelerating pretty soon.
Okay, fine. On that basis and on the journey, Bill, where will this go next in terms of innovation, and what should firms be preparing for as this does advance?
I think we talked a lot about analytics and AI already. Tim and Jason have spoken about that. I think we're just in the early days of discovering what the potential opportunities are here. And I agree with Jason also that things are going to be happening a lot more fast now, as people get more comfortable with it. We see the ESG space, how it's now so much easier to make specific data groups available to clients to do specific analyses on companies and so forth. So ESG has certainly added some capabilities here. I was at a conference earlier last week where we were talking about market data a la carte, where clients could actually, the data vendors have great data sets. There's no question about it, right? And this is not about the data. It's not about the quality of the data. This is not about how good or bad the data is. It's about the delivery of the data, right? And when I talk to clients, they say to us, we like working with Refinitiv. I just want to have a platform that's neutral, right? So I think that they continue to keep Refinitiv running. That's perfectly fine. But let's just give them a world that's more cloud, more neutral, this kind of thing, right? But I think as Jason said, there's been a lot of investment done at LSE about getting to the cloud, and we see all that happening much more quickly now. I think the fintech firms are moving much more quickly because they're more nimble and they're able to do that as I am that way. But I also think that the Geoffrey Moore model, the technology life cycle is also at play here, right? That you're going to see customers, some go faster and more quickly and want to be a part of the change, and then over time, more and more will come. But I think obviously AI and analytics, ESG, real-time data, it's coming, and you're going to see this happen much more quickly over the course of the next 2 or 3 years, I think.
Okay. Jason, would you like to add to that, or shall we move on again?
So I think the only thing I'll add here is marketplaces. Big clients take millions of lines of data every day, but you've got the mum and pop shops, you've got car manufacturers, you've got all these other people that want data. They just want to be able to go to a marketplace, select a data package, type in a corporate card, DocuSign, they've got access to it, straight API, done. So that's something that we're working on. We think it's going to be a big thing for our tail clients. And, running things via the cloud should be cheaper for us. Therefore, it's cheaper for our clients as well. So I think that's definitely coming.
Okay, thank you. That's great. So let's take a little break here. We have some audience questions. And Bill, I'm going to put this first one to you because it's sort of what you were talking about. And it says, cloud offers a lot of possibilities and capabilities. To use an analogy, are we in a situation where the forest is so dense we can't see the trees? And to follow up on that, what do companies need to do to make their trees stand out?
So that's one of the questions coming up here, I believe, right? how we take the most advantage of cloud. I think that what's important is that you have a cloud strategy. What's important is that that you have somebody or some group of people that's analyzing the workloads from critical to non-critical and develop a journey for that through the forest, if you will. And I think that's really very important here. And I think that having a cloud team that understands the cloud very, very well helps make that more effective and more functional, I think.
Okay, and how do they stand out as the tree? What are the standouts that people can adopt to make them slightly different? Is there anything there?
I think people need to be much more proactive about how they put their applications forward, and they've got to be much more. They got to be leaning into the fact that they believe that their environment can run much more efficiently and effectively and resiliently in the cloud. I think there's a lot of clamoring at the moment about I want to go, and I think we've got to make sure that we pick the best ones first. Yeah, I suspect.
Okay, great. Anybody want to add to that one? How to stand out in the forest? Okay, let's move on. Anna, one for you perhaps. Can the panel comment on reducing market data costs by using modern delivery methods? Is this something that you've managed to achieve or measure?
I can't really, comment on exactly some of the things that we've been doing at Quilter or are doing at Quilter, but I think there definitely are some efficiencies of cost here, and I think we've alluded to those today. We've all talked around failover disaster recovery. I think that is a great cost saving here with using cloud. I think there is cost savings and operational savings around delivery of data and delivery of data once or several times instead of many times, and using it more than delivering it once and using it once. So I think there's a lot of cost savings there, and I think there's also cost savings in being agile. Companies want to be agile, they want to be fleet of foot, they want to move into markets quickly, they want to be able to do things quickly. And if we look 20-30 years ago, it took a long time to get data in, API, set it up, program that data. It just took a long time, and I think the cloud and the movements in the cloud, the agility in the cloud, the breadth of data that's available, types of data, and we must couch this in the different user cases, creates a lot of agility and time to market for organizations. So I think there are definitely cost savings to be had. And alluding to what Bill said, I think this will make things more competitive because data will be available quicker, and I think companies will be more agile in being able to move and choose data providers, which I think creates competition.
Okay, that was a question we were going to come to, and it is on amongst the questions from our audience about how to stand out. So thank you for that. Excellent, good. Jason, coming to you. Better access permissions and control were mentioned. How do you track raw and derived data creation and redistributing using raw data originally sourced via the cloud? Is that something you know about? Or is that?
I'd have to get one of my tech guys on for that. It is a challenge. It is a challenge. Obviously, we've got a permissioning system called DAX. So that works for us. We have Open DAX that works in public and private cloud. That's the way we would track and manage that with the client. If you're looking at managing the data ingestion and who's using it and internal billing, you've got to set that up right from the beginning with the CSP to make sure that the cross-charging internally is done correctly. The permissioning at source, each one of the CSPs has the ability to provide a permissioning system, not just DAX. So you can allow different users to access different data. You can switch them off, you can switch them on. So there are ways to doing all these things. Obviously, it'd be a business case by business case or usage by usage. But it's the same today as, I guess, the challenges people have with on-premise. It's, are we permissioning the right people? Are we using the data the right way? And are we storing it the right way? It is a challenge. There's multiple products and tools to do that, but I know the CSPs and FinOps have products that you can use to also, if you're not using DAX or a different platform, to manage it.
Okay, that's great. Another one, I'm going to give this one to you, Tim, and it says, how can we switch between delivery methods depending on the need for market data? Obviously, there are times of more and less and different speeds and requirements and so on. How can people switch very easily?
Well, I think cloud gives you that opportunity again to do that. I mean, cloud's going to give you that platform to be able to stand up the varying different delivery methods that you need, and then it's just a case of turning it on, I suppose. And if you start to look at a very API centric kind of view of the world as well, being able to just kind of plug your applications or plug your varying different tools into the APIs and how they expose that data as well. So I think the opportunity to switch between the vendors and stuff should be really quite straightforward, providing that I suppose you have the necessary relationships with the vendors in place that are going to provide these tools. But whether or not you go through a proprietary kind of cloud service or you look at a vendor solution that's running on top of a cloud, it should be relatively straightforward now. But again, I think it's still going to go back to what Jason was just previously saying, understanding what data that you're allowed to use and how you license it and who's allowed to use what. I think that's probably the more fundamental part of it. But actually enabling it and running it on a cloud should be, in terms of technology, should be maybe the slightly easier bit. It's the governance and the process and the licensing and around it that probably make it more challenging, in all honesty.
Okay, one more. I'm going to put this one to both Jason and Anna. And it says, we need to improve market data delivery from the cloud. Where should we start? Can we go first, Jason?
I'm happy to go first. So market data delivery from the cloud. So we have a product called Managed Extranet for Cloud, which allows us to deliver conflated or faulted data to any public cloud anywhere in the world. And we'll manage that all the way to the drop-off point, wherever the client's workloads are. But we have developed that in the last year, because what we didn't want to do was cross-connect in a co-location and just hope the data made it to the CSP and to the workload. So we've worked with network providers, with service providers to ensure that we can offer this now. But it was a challenge for us because, if people wanted our data in Google, we'd have to make sure it got all the way down to that AZ they wanted it at.
Okay, I think we're looking at it the other way, which was the question, but don't worry, that is of interest too. Anna, we need to improve market data delivery from the cloud. Where should we start? I think it's the question of, what are the key things to do?
Oh, when looking at moving to the cloud, the things to look at are around the use case that you're looking at and whether it's appropriate to take that data from the cloud. Looking at the contractuals, the licensing, the commercials, the permissioning around it. And I think there's also the concentration risk of that cloud provider and, that type of thing, actually. But those are things that I would look at.
Okay, thank you all. Thank you indeed to our audience for your questions and to our speakers for your answers. And coming back to my questions, Tim, please would you provide a practical guide on how to implement new cloud-based market data delivery models?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. I think that's a really interesting question, and I'd probably look at it in two kind of parts. So, first of all, I'd kind of try and understand what we were trying to achieve. So, not a mistake some people make, but depending on the situation that they're in, sometimes people kind of take what they've got today and they move it and they stick it in the cloud and they go, there you go, I've now got my application running in the cloud. I'm a cloud native application. And that's not necessarily the best way to do it. I think what you need to do is actually look at the use case that you're actually trying to achieve and what you're trying to solve for, and then start to kind of break down how you currently do it today. What's the best services available at your disposal on a cloud to allow you to achieve what you're trying to achieve? So, why would you look at using things like, IaaS is brilliant on every cloud platform, and it serves a purpose, and I certainly wouldn't suggest people not to do that, but it might be that a managed service meets your needs, removes operational burden, and allows you to kind of innovate a lot more than continuing just doing what you're doing. Because when you're using IaaS, there is still overhead, there is still management that needs to be done, you still have nodes that need to be looked after. And if you can start to veer away from that onto a managed service approach, longer term, it kind of should make your life easier and allow you to innovate and iterate a lot quicker than you have. Trying to look at how you can leverage the kind of the scale out nature of a cloud as well, and building kind of horizontally scaling applications and solutions. So if you have peaks and troughs, that you can scale right back, keep your cost minimal when it's not busy, and then allow you to scale out when the demand is there. And again, a lot of the managed services will do that automatically for you. Others, like containerization, will allow you to do that as well. So having a look at that. I mentioned earlier when we were talking that open source is a huge, kind of thing that Google are very much bought into. We have been for a very long time. We contribute to a huge amount of projects. Kubernetes is, was a Google product, and it's now there, and one of the most widely adopted containerization platforms or orchestration platforms in the world. And looking at when you're starting to build your solution, do you want it to be portable? Do you want it to be able to run across multiple clouds? Taking that open source approach, it's really important. And an extra thing I would always, we talked about earlier, engage the security teams right from the very outset. Don't leave it till the last minute and go, I've built this wonderful thing, security, please can you validate it for us? Bring them in on day one, make them feel part of that journey, get them involved so that they're bought into what you're trying to do and they can help you. And then you won't spend weeks, months building this lovely architecture that then gets rejected. You've understood it from every step of that journey. So I think from architectural kind of view, that's one thing that I think I would very much kind of look at in that type of approach. And then when you're actually running in the cloud, some of the things that people kind of forget, and we've talked a lot about cost and how cloud can be a cost saving. I think another thing that I would do, and maybe it's more on the operational side, but look at FinOps. FinOps can give you fantastic visibility into what you're spending. When you run a solution in your own data center, it kind of goes into a bit of a black hole, and you've got a load of sunk costs, and it's all kind of capex, and it's very difficult to actually trace back. When you're in the cloud, things like BigQuery can tell you how much you paid for an actual query. So you can go right down and go, if I run this particular calculation, it's going to cost me $1 or $10 or $100, depending on the amount of data that I'm processing within that query. And getting, allowing teams to have that visibility and actually what's the cost of what they're running, makes them look at the way that they consume the cloud, in a far different way. So gone are the days where you'd give someone access to like a big data warehouse and they'd run select star from everything. If you do that in the cloud, you could end up with some quite large bills, and it makes you think a lot more about what you're running and what you're trying to get out of it. So, but allows people to have that visibility. So I think FinOps, again, is something that I would very much recommend that people look into straight from the outset when they're starting their project and implementing it on day one, because it will just give everyone, a far better visibility of what's happening.
Okay, thank you. Anna, what would you say there in terms of practical guidance?
I mean, I would echo all of Tim's points, actually. But one of the other things I would probably also focus on is looking at the user cases and really coming into the user cases across organizations that potentially could be moved into a cloud and why. And that's the user cases more from the individual user who's using that data in the organization, which comes down to the compliance and risk pieces. And also covering why it would be a good reason to move that data into the cloud. I mean, I think we've all talked about the advantages of using cloud, But when you come down to the user cases, it's all down to what that person is using that data for and whether it is requisite to actually move it. And that's one of the things I think is a really important piece to cover, because as Tim said, about security and IT, getting those people in early is very important, but also getting the business in early is very important too. Because you can build whatever you want to build. The business at the end of it say, no, I don't want that to happen. It's not going to happen. So getting their buy-in and working through those user cases with them is really key.
Okay, let's move on if we may, and let's run our final audience poll here. The question is, what benefits does your organization gain or expect to gain from next generation cloud-based market data delivery models? And again, you can tick as many boxes as are appropriate to your organization. And while you do that, Anna, can I come back to you talking about getting the benefits of getting the delivery models right and the penalties of getting it wrong?
We've talked a lot about the benefits. I think we've all talked a lot about the benefits. The penalties of getting it wrong, I think Tim alluded to just now, actually. You could go off and build something, and then you're going to have, the IT department, OpRes department, or compliance department or risk department in the business say, that's not required for us. So I think there are fairly high penalties here if you go ahead building something that on the face of it looks good, but doesn't really have the buy-in of all of the particular areas. And I think looking at all those particular areas around compliance, risk, is this data set, is from the business perspective, should it go into the cloud or not go into the cloud? How can it be managed? Is really key. I also think one of the other things is around licensing. The moving it into the cloud is one thing, which is an operational thing, but it's also the licensing of that data and the ongoing use of that data. That licensing is still there. It's not going to go away. And I think it's important to work through all of those pieces when doing it. The benefits, we've talked a lot about the benefits around it, agility, more data, operational benefits. We talked about the disaster recovery, failover, all of those. They're great benefits for an organisation. But fundamentally, there can be, issues and penalties if it doesn't go well, which are probably the same for a lot of projects. Yeah.
Okay. Can we see the poll results? And Bill, perhaps you'd like to comment on these as well as noting any additional benefits and any penalties that you perceive.
I would say that you can see the market is definitely wants more data from and more sourcing options, I think, and that's what we talked about before about the neutrality and the competition and so forth. I think the thing that I would say about this is that you got to be careful not to move the old world into the new world. You've got to put the old world away, let it run in parallel for a period of time that you're comfortable with, but you've got to build the new world fresh with new technology. And the only way you're going to take advantage of what the cloud has to offer is to build it in cloud native. And people throw around cloud native, they throw it around like Tim alluded, right? They throw it around as something that I'm cloud native, right? But to be truly cloud native, you need to have a plan, you need to have a strategy, you need to have a cloud expert that works with your team that's defining the applications. I think that's the key thing, is let the old world go and let the new world begin. And that's where we're going. I think that will help drive more data sources to the cloud, give you more options for the cloud and more flexibility and more opportunity, in my view.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. And thank you. And coming to our last question, I'd like to ask all our speakers to offer some advice to practitioners working with or planning to work with next generation cloud-based market data delivery solutions. And Anna, please, would you start here?
I think a couple of things. One is be clear on the data sets, be clear on the reasons why those data sets, and work through the required people on those data sets. Really, really important. Other advice is concentration risk. From a contractual perspective, very important. I think be open. Look at this as an operational change. It is not replacing one for the other.
Okay, Bill.
Yeah, I would say skills. I think it's really important that You make sure your team understands the cloud. Being able to buy something on Amazon doesn't mean you know the cloud. You need to be trained. People need to understand what the cloud is all about. So that's number one. Second thing is you need to run apps in parallel for a period of time. You need to make sure that let them run in parallel till everybody is comfortable with it. You may be able to move faster in the future, but for right now, run them in parallel so you can see things working and everything is going well. And thirdly, I'd say monitoring an environment in the cloud is very different than monitoring it on-prem. There's a lot of capabilities that the cloud has or the cloud doesn't have that you may need to build internally with external apps and this kind of thing. But make sure you've got a proper support structure that covers all of those new environments, and then you got a proper monitoring structure that covers those environments. I think that's a very important thing to do in this new world.
Okay, thank you. And some advice from you, Tim.
Yeah, so for me, I think I would, great points that have already been made. I think I've alluded to them kind of previously, but, build for the cloud. Don't just kind of lift and shift what you've got today. Try and, leverage the capabilities that are available on the platforms. Engage the security teams nice and early, and the IT teams and the business teams, like Anna said. That's a great bit of advice. Try and get everyone all on the same page as early in the journey as you can. And remember that cloud's a great way to test and try something different and do something new. You don't just have to do this huge big bang approach. You can take a very small use case, you can test it, you can try it, you can iterate, you can build on it. If it didn't work, you've not spent huge amounts of money, and it allows you just to be more innovative.
Excellent. And some final words here from you, please, Jason.
So I would say FinOps is the most critical thing when you move to cloud. You need to know what your burn rate is. So do the maths pre-migration and post-migration. Your CSP will help you out on that. They'll understand what you're trying to build. As everyone's alluded to, I think lift and shift is not the right route. If you're going to build on the cloud, build a cloud native app on the cloud to take the benefits. Otherwise, you're just running an IaaS platform. And then lastly, understand exactly what your business is doing. What's their roadmap for the next 1, 2, 3, 5 years, and build with them. Any legacy applications that are going to die in 2 years, don't bother moving them. Just build cloud native off the bat. So as long as you've got your developers, FinOps team, business team, market data teams, infrastructure teams, all in the same room, I think you'll be successful. And obviously have your CSP there as well.
Okay, thank you, Jason. And thank you to all our speakers for sharing their expertise and experience. And thank you to Refinitiv and LSEG Business for sponsoring today's webinar. Before we close, just a few A-Team Group events that may be of interest to you. You can sign up to take part in A-Team Group's 8th of June 2023 Trading Tech Briefing New York. That's this Thursday if you happen to be in New York. After that, we have our 5th of October RegTech Summit in London. And then on the 16th of November, a RegTech Summit in New York. So you can also sign up on the screen for those events. So that's it for today. So thank you again to Anna, Jason, Tim, and Bill. And thank you to all of you who've taken part in the webinar. Please complete our feedback form, as we're always keen to hear your views and improve our products. Meantime, thanks again and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.